Welcome to the Melanin Jelly Project Conversations, a podcast that celebrates diversity and representation in children's storytelling, entertainment, and edutainment. I am the host, Olunosen Louisa Ivaze. On this podcast, I chat with authors and creators of children's books, entertainment, and edutainment. This is also a collaboration with the Ottawa Black Book Club. So, welcome, Doubra Fufeyin. Welcome to the Melanin Jelly Conversations, podcast. I always say that the name of this podcast is Conversations, but because it has the Melanin Jelly Project, a lot of it often sounds like a mouthful. Doubra is a lawyer, an ex-beauty queen, a mother, and a poet. You see how beautiful she is. So welcome, Doubra. Doubra is joining me all the way from the UK. Well, it's a cold and rainy morning here in Canada. In Ottawa.
As well.
Yeah. So welcome to the podcast, Doubra. Tell me about yourself and what inspired you to start writing poetry.
Okay. Your intro pretty much has talked about different things about me already. So in terms of my education, trained lawyer and an ex-beauty queen and model, and more recently, poet and author. In terms of what inspired me, I really don't know where the inspiration started, but I think it started with me putting my thoughts to paper. Just generally having all these ideas and imagery in my head and wanting to put it down. I think that's where the journey started. And in doing that, you tend to see that, oh, look, it seems like I have a passion here, or it seems there's something, here that I feel, fulfilled, and I can pass a message across and everything. So that's how the journey started. And I've been writing since I was a little girl. So that's how the journey started. Thoughts to paper, the book, and that's where we are now.
Okay. And you read law. So
yes, I did.
Expected you to... I would have expected if you were going to write something like John Grisham. I've read books by So why poetry?
I think that poetry is an abridged way of putting your message across. Where some art forms, have a longer way of putting things across, like movies or music or things, for instance. But I think poetry is very succinct. It's quite brief, and it engages, the audience for a short time. Mm-hmm. And I am a poet, and sticking to my trade meant that, putting my message in poetry as opposed to, writing a book or a novel, which is, your case. You write books, short stories and, and things like that. So for me, it's always been poetry. And for me, it's just putting a direct message out there, in my own way, that has been shaped from my experiences. That's what it is, really.
Okay, so I really enjoyed reading I read your book, My Book of Poems. It's available on Amazon. I liked the preface where you said, I fell in love with words at an early age, and I think that my father was partly and mostly responsible for that. He was surrounded by books from encyclopedias and several genres of literature, ranging from history and religion to art. It was a good way to feed my curious mind. My favorite pastime was to sit by his foot and have him dish out different words for me to spell. Occasionally, I challenged him because I had read my dictionary in and out. By far, my greatest disappointment came when he asked me to spell the word etiquette. And without a care, I rambled on to spell etiquette. That was my first lesson on homonyms, words that sound alike but are spelled differently. As I grew older, I started to write down my thoughts, blended it with imagery, rhyme, and verse. The rest is history. For little did I know that my imagination would merge with my experiences to become a source of expression and fulfillment. They say that your passion is your drive, and when you are driven, your passion ignites your fire. Talk to us about your fire.
Wow, you took me back there for a while down memory lane. What ignites my fire? Positivity. I think I'm drawn to positivity. I'm drawn to fairness, and I have a curiosity that enables me try to reach minds. Minds, by minds I mean people around me.
Okay.
You know how people always feel like there's this great change that's going to happen, but my philosophy is that it starts from you, it starts from us, it starts from everybody. And I just feel that, you know, in doing my own little thing, expressing, you know, myself through poetry, that I was impacting, and the message is definitely going to spread and you know, make the world a better place in my own little way, enriching minds.
It's nice. I like that you talk about, you know, change a lot. Yeah, you talk about change. In your thoughts here, you said, if my thoughts are shared in its purest form, if I can convey meaning through imagery, rhyme, and verse, then this gift with which I have been blessed shall not die with me, but will come alive each time a page of this book is turned. So what is it about poetry, you understand, that speaks to you? I mean, you could have written a novel, you could have written a collection of short stories. Why poetry? Yeah. Why poetry?
I think for me, it's just passing my message fastest.
Okay.
You know, it's the fastest way to pass my message. And I feel that everybody has their own gift. Everybody has their own passion. For me, this is how I best deliver my message. Writing a book or a story would mean developing characters and, you know, twisting, you know, plots. And I feel that takes a long time. It takes a long time. And I think that I know myself and I know my capabilities. I know how I can do my own thing. You know, so it's not a case of like you can write a book, write a song. That's not where my focus is. I've always like realized that this is my focus. And just because Louisa has written a book, and you know, I've always been fixated on my poetry and my message in the way that I do it. And for some reason, I haven't deviated. But that's not to say that deviation is not possible. I mean, whatever you set your mind to do it, the words are there, the gift is within. So it depends on what you want to channel. And really in life, you can channel yourself to different projects. It could be there could be a point in my life where I say, oh, my deviation now is going to be in short stories, or, you know, like an article or something. It could be, there's room for change. Change is always dynamic. But for now, and for what my direct passion is poetry. I'm fixated on that. And I'm still passing my message across, which is the most important thing.
Okay, well, that's beautiful. So let me move away from your writing a bit. How did you get into beauty, into the world of beauty? You are beautiful, but how did you get into the world? Yeah, how did you get into the world of pageantry and so on? I mean, there are a lot of beautiful women out there, but not many of them have that confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to compete. And you're an ex-beauty queen. Ex-beauty queen of what or where?
Ooh, that's going to take a long time. Because, I mean, well, as far as veterans are concerned, when it comes to beauty pageantry, I guess if there was something like a veteran, I would be in that category as well, because I think I did several pageants. And funny enough, it was an accidental journey. I never woke up saying, same with the poetry, I never woke up saying I'm going to be a poet, I'm going to have a book one day. I just followed my passion and everything came up. The whole pageantry journey started with a photo competition. Then in Vanguard, it was for locks. It was a photo competition. It wasn't at that stage, it was just a photo competition. And I just thought, you know, let me be cheeky and let me just send, there's this photo that I like.
Okay.
I actually have the photo somewhere. There's this photo, I'm like, I'm going to send that picture in. And obviously I'm thinking, I don't think anything is going to come out of this, because there are girls all over Nigeria sending their pictures. I mean, Nigeria is a big country. What are the chances of you being selected? I mean, and they're just going to select like maybe like 10 girls from the handful, and from the whole from the whole country, you know. So and then shortlisted and everything, I was a finalist, and I'm like, okay, well, that's not bad. You get a cash prize and whatever. But I think the organizers then had a different idea to say, you know what, from this photo competition, we're going to make it a pageant. So that's how we started. That's how accidental it was. So from the photo competition, it became a pageant, and that's where Miss Lux was born out. So that was my first pageant.
Okay.
And I was second runner up to Ibidun Ajayi, whom coincidentally the book is dedicated. My book of poems.
Igodalo, the one who passed away.
This one. Yes.
Oh my God. Oh, really?
Yeah, look at it. Look at it. Yeah.
Yes, I noticed the book is dedicated to her, but when I saw it, I was just like, maybe she's your pastor's wife or something. So I got the assumption. Oh wow.
Yes, she was my queen. So I was a runner up to Ibidum, and so it was a remarkable experience, and I enjoyed it, and I felt connected to her in some way, because of what she exuded in terms of like innately as well. I mean, apart from the outward beauty and all of that. So I think I was very saddened by her death. I was very saddened by her death, because I felt like she was a woman that established herself in the face of adversity, carrying her cross publicly and everything. So I really, really did mourn her, and they're writing a tribute dedicate a tribute to her, kind of like sparked off the whole journey of the book, because I'm like, someone saw my tribute, I'm like, what, you can write, what are you doing, where's your book? And I'm like, I haven't really thought about doing that yet, but what are you waiting for? So I had that kind of like what's the word, catalyst.
When you spoke about her death being a catalyst, it's like I have my poetry books here. I have these two poetry books up here, and I had this best friend from primary school, Chidi, and we were friends because when we moved from the north to Benin, I started in primary 4, so I met him in primary 4 and we became friends. So through Air Force Primary School all the way to UDSS, him and me were very good friends till we finished school. I got into university very early, by 96. I finished 96, I got into the university, same year. Yeah. So I got into the university, and he was still writing JAM. So I was already working when he went for youth service. So that friendship just continued, and then he passed away. Yeah, he passed away, and when I talk about it, I still tear up. And I remember that was part of it when I was putting together my poems, my book of free verse, because I write everything. I write all kinds of things. So when I was putting it together, sometimes I would be writing some of the poems, and I would hear his voice.
Yes.
Well, what would go through my mind would be, Chidi would have said this, and I would have a good laugh. Yeah, because every year we would sit, we would talk. We had this thing where he would say, I can picture ourselves when we're in our 40s, and all of us, the last scene in that movie, Waiting to Exhale, where all the friends were sitting together, they were eating, dancing, talking. He said, I look forward to that day when all of us will sit together and our children, will be in the background playing.
Later.
He didn't live till 40. He didn't see 40. So I celebrate him every year, and he was an only child. Yeah. So, very very heartbreaking. He was an only child, and then his mom passed away the following year. Yes. So for you, when you say you dedicated this to a friend who passed away, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one of the strong things about me. I mean, one of my ethos, which is friendship is love, which is what my second book is about. For you to talk about that, it means that your life has been touched by a friendship that was different. For me, it's a big thing. I mean, not everybody has that opportunity of making those great friendships with people. And I think it's another aspect of love that people don't even understand, that it's so fulfilling, and it's so supportive, and it's so important that you can't even just take it for granted.
Yes, very true. Okay. So I'm looking at your poems, and I see that you write a lot about beauty, and then you bring it back to reality. It starts off with beauty, and then it's easy for you to start reading the poem and go, okay, so beauty, now she's going to fly into beauty. But then you bring it back quickly to reality. So So how do you think, because have you mentored children before in regards to writing poetry or any form of writing? Have you mentored kids or have you worked with children?
Oh yes, I do work. I have worked with children in my professional capacity as an early years practitioner. Work with children and young people.
And young people.
So that has always been, what I've done for years. It's kind of like understanding their developmental stages. And this cuts through from birth to like 5, or like if you're working with older from 19 to all the way to 25, and their whole world is just in that fundamental stage where they're learning, they're exploring, and our role as practitioners is impacting and seeing what they are made of, what stimulates them. Are they safe? What are their interests? How can we develop on that? So that's how my working with children and young people can be perceived. It's kind of like impacting, and because you were a child before, you can connect to them on that level. And sometimes you understand, like, how did she understand everything that that I'm going through? Because I've been a child before.
No, kids know. We underestimate them a lot. They know.
Yeah.
They know. Yeah. So as a
Yeah.
poet, how do you think we can inspire children to write poetry or to start to enjoy poetry? How do you think we can inspire kids? Because a lot of people assume it's only adults who enjoy poetry. But I think that kids, as a child growing up, I liked poetry. Or maybe it's me who loves books and everything books. But how do you think we can inspire children to start to love poetry, to develop a love and understanding of poetry?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've done, I've worked, with children in terms of like, I've had like, writing competitions and things like that, with a topic for them to express themselves in their own words, where they're building imagery, they're using all these, figures of speech, rhymes and everything. I have on a few occasions, encouraged that on my forum. And also I have had the opportunity of making them come in contact with my books, so as a youth mentor as well. One of the things I did, was actually, give them copies of my book, let them understand what my message is about. And because my writing is very simple, even, I was able to relate with children even in primary school. So they can read my book, they're enjoying it, like, "Auntie, I read your book," and everything. And they're like, is that simplicity that cuts across, different age groups, because it's the message and it's simple. Everybody understands friendship. Even a toddler, they connect to warmth, they connect to everything that is loving, and it's just a natural thing. You give love, you get love. You spread that message, in words. So I do try, and I think I'm going to do more in terms of like projects. I have, worked with my alma mater in terms of like the library project in my in my school, my former school, where part of the drive was to give them a wide collection of books, because obviously I am into books. So that's what my touch would be, my literary touch to that that environment would be to give them, like I said when I was writing about my book, I talked about being surrounded by books. If it's around you and you can see it and you can relate with it, you can get into the world of it, then you are just generally developing that appetite, that quest for knowledge.
Yes, very true.
Yes. Yeah.
So what are some tips you can give? Like, talk us through your writing process. Talk us through your writing process, because people are inspired by different things. Like me, when I write novels, I'm inspired. Look, daily life is content for me. Like Nigeria back then, where I grew up, when we moved, because we lived in different places. But I think my greatest content was when I lived in Lagos. That was fuel for my photography. It was, yes, I feed off that kind of energy. Yeah, I didn't know I could do, photography, take pictures. And then when we moved to Benin and living opposite the barracks was excellent feel for the genre. I started to, you know how when you start writing, you start off writing general stories, and then as you mature in the art of writing, you start to carve a niche for yourself.
Yeah.
So living opposite the barracks is what inspired the niche I have chosen to write in, and even past stories that I've written, that I'm writing, and now I'm adapting it to say, okay, I want it to feed this niche. Yeah. So talk us through your writing process. You know, what inspires you to write, and how do you go about writing? Do you wake up in the morning and look at the sun, sit by your window and write? Because that's what they think we writers do. Someone said to me, you know what? You go just get up now, just look for one place, one field, just go sit down, look water, they start to be right.
I like it when you said, I think when in starting this statement, you said inspiration is like from your everyday experience. I like that.
That's cool.
And that for me is different. I mean, writing just comes naturally to me, so much so that if you woke me up and said, write about this or write about that, I could write about anything. But in terms of inspiration, I do everything. The way I view the environment, it could be just a couple I see walking down the street, or if somebody, it could just be even that train ride. I mean, me just looking out and seeing people's lives around, or the landscape. Anything could inspire me, and I write better when that inspiration is developed. I write better when that inspiration is developed. So something inspires you. How do you also put it across? Because just the way it is may not really, you kind of like garnish it and, make it richer. Yeah. There's the inspiration, and there's the imagery, and there's you putting the words together. So that's how it starts for me. So the inspiration, putting it together, and then putting the words. That's my process. Okay. So if I wake up and I go out and I look, at the field, for instance, and it's looking really, really green and lush, and I'm feeling that freshness. First and foremost, that has given me the inspiration. But now, putting that inspiration into words is where the poet's magic comes in, so to speak. So you're using rhyme, you're looking at it. I remember there's a picture, and when you talk about picture, there's so many things about art forms that are connected. When I started on Instagram, I started like with the picture and the poem. So I'll see pictures, I'll take pictures. Like, say I was driving towards, a school or town, and I'd see a nice rainbow, or even like some fat cats sitting around the corner. And then the next thing I'm writing about the fat cat sitting around the corner. Why are they conveying? Are they having a meeting, or they're thinking of what's their thought process, and that becomes poetry. So I can't say, for instance, there's just one reason, but it's always good to have a clear head. So that really helps. I mean, you're not necessarily, you can find poetry even in chaotic experiences as well. Yeah. So it's not just only clear space of mind that inspires. People are inspired through pain, through love, through changes, through death, so many things can inspire you. So for me, it's just that inspiration, the process of putting it together and putting your message out there. That's my process.
Okay. So if a child was going to write poetry, what are some tips you can give children to write poetry? Because this podcast is mainly for celebrating children's diversity, representation, and inclusion in children's storytelling, entertainment, edutainment. And I feel that children can benefit a lot.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they can benefit a lot from this. Because if a child wanted to write poetry, so what are some tips you can give kids?
Yeah, for some simple tips, it depends on the age of the children. My poetry is quite simple. I always talk to children and young people about having that. What do you hope to achieve? What do you want to write about? You can write about anything. You can write about, your pet. You can write about your favorite color. How do you want your message to be seen? Do you want people to be connected in a particular way? So the first thing you want to have is like, what am I writing about? And how do I want this message to be seen? How do I make it simple? How do I put the words and make it interesting? What figures of speech? What are the things that I can use? I can use rhyme. I can use, okay, say for instance, I'm writing about the cat and everything. And then, okay, I want to use rhyme. And a simple rhyme to use in that situation would be the fat cat sat on the mat.
Yeah.
But that's pretty basic. The fat cat sat on the mat.
Yeah.
But what else do you want them to know about the cat? Is it just the fact that it's fat and it's sitting on the mat, or are you going to describe the things around it to give it some life, to make it kind of like a short story? So it doesn't have to be long-winded. This is what I tell people. First and foremost, you put your words, your let me say, use it, your acts together. What is it that I want to talk about? That's the first step. Once you have that, how do I want it to come across? Do I want it to be funny? Do I want it to be deep and serious? And that's going to determine the kind of words that you're going to use. So if you're talking about somebody who died and, you're not going to be, there's not going to be, it's a tribute, there's not going to be humor in there. It's going to be talking about facts and, surreal moments that can actually, make you see, death in the way that is what death has done to you in terms of taking this person away. So that's it, having that simple message and putting it alive using all these things. And it's for children is very simple. Similes, like honey, sweet like honey. So words as in rhyme, using all those simple basic things. They're not at that stage where they can go into deep symbolic things. So I think for children it's that basic simple way of putting it across so that it comes, their innocence shines through. Their innocence shines through, what they're trying to convey shines through. So that's my tip for children. Have a message. How do you want it to be put across? Put it together using, because even at that elementary stage, they are taught, what words, are rhymes, what words are like an onomatopoeia. They know the figures of speech at that level. So it's kind of like taking the classroom beats with your imagination and making your message rich and putting it across in its simplest form.
Okay. So how do you think reading culture can be improved on? Like, let's say we are both Nigerians, even though we are now living in the diaspora. You live in the UK, I live in Canada. But let's take it back home, like in Nigeria now. How do you think how do you think we can improve reading culture? Apart from the cost of books, bringing down the cost of books and making books accessible, how do you think we can improve reading culture among young people in Nigeria?
I think one of the fastest ways of improving reading culture is going with the times. This is a generation. There's more in social media. There's more access to resources as opposed to our time where it was just strictly the hard copies and being in the classroom environment. There are a rich websites where children can engage on a literal level. Say for your project, for instance, you've written child-friendly books, you've written books that are on diversity, and you're putting your message across. That's one very good way of getting children interested, because they can see that, this book is about little girls like me. They can connect to that. And I think the fastest way to connect to children is like with their interest. And I'm not talking only just from a mother's point of view. I'm also talking as an early years a professional. If you can get into their world, if you can come down to their level and understand how their mind works and what excites them, that's the starting point. Because if you don't even know what interests them, you're going to be coming with this, and this is where they are at. It doesn't tally. So, for instance, a little boy likes cars, for instance. He will be more interested in writing about cars, most likely, than anything else.
Yes, very true.
Than anything else. So I think when it comes to children and young people, it's getting their interest. But I don't know if I think I wouldn't say I don't know if this is a hasty generalization, but I think boys tend to prefer girls are more into books. I mean, from what I know, reading
Yeah.
and all of that, we are more into books. And so for some boys are into books, but I really, from my own experience, I believe. So that's why I didn't want to generalize it. Yeah, because the stats could prove different. But I know that getting boys to read is a bit of the challenge, where they're more into like their mathematics and science and things like that. But we do know that getting your mind into the world of books takes your mind everywhere. You can educate yourself, about the past, about even things that are perceived for in the future. It takes you to different places where you can't even go physically. You're talking about John Grisham and everything. I know I had like a collection, still have a collection of John Grisham books, still have a collection of some of my favorite artists, Daniel Steele, and a few, and this is the world that I was immersed in, because I was surrounded by it. It was easy for me to go in there. So I think not every child, has that great literary side or has that passion and everything. But I think that a lot of children can be drawn into the world of books in today's society using social media, podcasts, materials where they can be directed to online, where they can read and just get their minds enriched. So like, apart from actually donating the books and things like that, whatever projects that we come in contact with that we can support is one way. Yeah, so I like in my local community or books, there's a book fair, or young people, I want to talk to them about the importance of books and everything. Go and speak. Talk to them about, I've had the opportunity of where I talk to children about books and what it was like for me and what it can be like for them. So I think today with social media, it's a lot easier. They can just like, and even in a lot of schools, they're like, they encourage reading, because reading has been identified as one of the ways where, it helps other subjects, even in the school environment. Children who read, you understand, even if it's reading, your maths can be better because you're able to deal with word problems better. You have, so reading is life.
Okay, so you've spoken about social media and creating access because of the times we're in. But so how do you think we can get parents? Because it's one thing for a child to desire to read. It's another thing for a parent to feel it's important to get books or to have access to children. I know that in Nigeria, like I was explaining to someone was asking me if my children's books are accessible in Nigeria to children in Nigeria. I said not yet, because I think of the cost of printing. Because if I think of, let's say, a parent buying the book in Nigeria and you convert it, maybe that book is about 5,000 naira. Depending on who that parent is. I mean, some parents are willing to make that sacrifice. But again, when an average parent who thinks of 5,000 naira, if 5,000 naira can prepare a pot of soup, why should I spend
you don't want to use it on the book?
Yeah, on the book. Yeah. So what do you think parents can do? What do you think the government can do? Because I remember back in the day, we used to have second-hand books. There used to be second-hand books that used to be really cheap, 100 naira, 200 naira. In Abuja, because I lived in Abuja. Yes, around the markets, they would just they usually, those vendors usually come out in the evenings. They put them on the floor, and you find good books there. But after some time, the task force chased them away. So what do you think that parents can do and the government can do to get access? Yes, because I know that one, cost of books are expensive. How do you think parents can have a change of mind?
I think that one way to look at it as well is, in introducing such books into the curriculum. Introducing such books into the curriculum, that's one way to look at it. Say, for instance, for children, okay, imagine, for instance, if the consideration of my books or your books getting into the curriculum, and then people are able to say that, okay, you went, what was the primary school? You mentioned Air Force.
Air Force.
Yes. And so you go to Airport Primary School, and you're having this talk with the school, and then you're trying to, have this project where, your books are going to be, accessible and all that. Think about the fact that they're seeing you. They know that you went to that school. They've seen what you're doing now. I think that's the biggest inspiration, biggest inspiration ever. I think that's going to double their excitement. The fact that she went to my primary school, there's no saying that I can't do it as well. And I think that sometimes it could be a collaborative process with the government, could be personal projects. As for parents, I know that there are a lot of there's some free websites out there, because obviously there are ebooks these days as well, and there are some, even like on BBC Bite Size, there are a lot of books, and there's a lot of free reading material out there. But then again, it would be the duty of the parents to channel the children to the particular books. So for instance, my son or my lad is into footballs and things, into football and things. There are some books on football that would kind of like, you take his attention to, that would also just kind of like kickstart his reading. Okay, let me start with, a Marcus Rashford book, for instance. He's a top footballer. He's written a lot of books about, to encourage young people and all of that. Why not? Let me read his book. And it's very inspirational for them as well. So I think in any way you can, really, making that difference could be, working with other people, working together with the government, personal projects, and getting the message out there. We're talking now, we're going to have parents watching the podcast. They're going to be hearing the things we're talking about. They're going to be directed to the Melanin project. They're going to be directed to Recitory, because I think in May I did, that's where I did on my Recitory session, we did a writing competition where, because it's about poetry and recipes, they presented, the children had recipes, and they were excited because they won money.
Oh wow!
Yes, they won money. Yeah, so the top, and then we had like a panel of people who, not just us. I mean, we do this selection and say, okay, these are our three last shortlist. Other people read it as well to say, okay, this is how I see the position. And then at the end of the day, the children got the money, and the excitement, the fact that they were chosen, the fact that they participated and they got a reward for it. These are the kind of things that, that we have to do in order to make it exciting and, exploratory for them.
Okay. So what are some of the challenges to publishing you think independent authors encounter? Like, did you have any challenges? Okay, let's say you chose not to self-publish, because I believe you would have loved to be published by some big publisher, right? A big publisher with a broader network and all of that. So what are some of the challenges you think independent authors encounter when they try to put their books out there? Let's say we didn't have Amazon to publish some of these.
I think you would even be in a better position to talk about that. You know why? Because I know your journey, and I know your for me, me going into my books, like I've told you, some of the things that have happened to me have been accidental. I mean, I didn't think that of May or 2020 that I'm going to do my book, I'm going to put it out there. Whereas you have been like, I want to write a book. You've been trying to get yourself published, and that's not my story. My story was like, yes, my story of getting my book out there was born out of like, that morning. It was born out of morning, and I'm like, you know what, I'm inspired by this, and this is the time. I just want to do it now. And the fastest way to put it across out there, to get my message, I just felt this was the time. Everything just started going in that direction. So, and I haven't, even begun that journey of self-publishing. So that's why I said I think you would be in a better position. I've not really like that hasn't been my journey. My journey has been more like straight into self-publishing. But I know that it doesn't come without its challenges, because we've talked about it before. You told me about your experiences of trying to self-publish and everything. But the good thing I see about it is that I think you having those difficulties at that particular time, shaping your output, so to speak. I mean, other people have written and all that, and I see when I see your presentation, how you come across in the way that you come across, I can see that you've come through the journey, the rigors. Yeah, you can see the experience and all of that. So sometimes people think that, oh, I wanted to put independently publish and all that and all these things. Everything adds up. It depends on you. If you want to go down that road, then you stick to it. It's going to happen. Do you give up? Do you go back there? Do you look for other ways? Do you just work on projects inside? It's really all up to you. If I wanted to get my book independently, and that was what I really wanted to do, it will happen because I won't stop. You talked about consistency. That would be my drive, and I'll follow it because I don't believe that having that dream and drive and stopping at some point is really going to take you anywhere in any sphere of life or any stratification of life. It's just following through with one, and everything that you dream is achievable.
Okay. So how do you think that as independent authors we can work together to promote each other?
But that's what we're doing now, isn't it?
Yes, that's what we're doing now. But I always like to ask, because I always feel other authors might have, I don't know everything. So other authors might have other ideas, you understand, which will be helpful. Yeah. So yes, that's why I always like to ask.
It's a good thing to ask. But I mean, I just felt that this was just like kind of like a very, very good example, because sometimes when you're giving examples, you want to give real examples.
Yeah.
I think we had conversation a few years ago, and today we're actually having this interview. Do you remember our first conversation when we were talking about books and everything? And you thought exactly, and then this is where we are today. You have your podcast. I have my recitatory live session and everything. Whether you like it or not, that has been a progress. Progress in terms of like we had these ideas and we followed through with consistency, and we're still putting our message out there. And in terms of like how can we work together, I mean, once it's the literary relationship has been established, any idea that can be put across can be brought on the table. I remember when we spoke the last time, I had some questions, I had different things, and you talked me through, like, from your experience, you were able to, to say, okay, I've been through this journey before. This is how you go about it. You say about it, and it made sense to me because you are giving me, I don't know what those snippets from your own personal experience. It's real, it's rich, and it helped me creatively. So working together is just my live session with my former schoolmate was just an extension of let's work together. I feel that it would be a nice fusion. You're into recipes. I'm into poetry. I mean, there are lots of poetry live sessions and things, but I'm the kind of person that likes to be engaged. Like, for instance, we're not just talking about books, we're talking about experiences and everything, because sometimes to get people's attention, to keep them focused is not an easy feat. You have to keep them engaged. So if I just come there and I'm just reading my books or my poetry, no matter how interesting it is, if there's not some added bits of it, it gets quite boring. And people, they're not engaging them. So I came up with this idea, let's join recipes and poetry together and do this thing and make it interesting and make it about experience. It's two worlds blending into one. It was a new idea, and now it's come to stay. So it's always a discussion, as long as you feel that your dream can blend or merge. There's always that discussion that can be had, and obviously depending on how you test the waters. Obviously, if people are sometimes word of mouth also, people say, oh, like a friend introduces us and say, oh, this person, I think you and this person, could really, really work together because you share similar views. So that kind of thing, it's just there. It has to be put on the table, and then, if it's workable, fine. If it's not workable, but it needs to be brought forward.
Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. But I was going to ask you to explain, because I am the Cray. So that poem you wrote, I am the Cray. I am rich in ancestry and history, scenery and greenery, boundless and limitless. I'm full of heritage and with age evolved with beauty and dignity through art, music, and prose. To this day, I uphold my totality with a lot more presence. My essence shall not wither, nor be a forgotten tale of the past. Indeed, I am blessed to flourish. Yes, I nourish a generation already born ready to bloom in the Cray. What is the Cray? Because I went to look for the meaning of the Cray. I was like, what is it?
The Cray is an area in my community, and this area, believe me or not, is as rich in ancestry and history as the poem connotes. It's an area where, literature and music and the beauty of, the environment has created, a real environment that anybody that, lives there or becomes part of it feels the touch. So for me, the Cray, is in my local community, and then you have schools, you have the churches, you have the environment, you have like a tea room. And what actually made me write about the Cray was because I belong to the Croft Poetry Club.
Okay.
And yes, and we meet monthly, and we've done anthologies. We come together, share our poems, and it's a very, very rich way of me learning about. Don't forget, I didn't grow up in these parts. Okay. So for me, learning and learning about the historical ancestry of the United Kingdom in my own way was, it was not something I could just like move away from. I'm no longer, the Nigerian environment is different from this environment. Yeah. So in our meetings, and because obviously everybody is quite, in my club, the people are quite mature. You have, people from all walks of life, dancers, teachers, people of different intellectual capacities are coming together, and they're talking about, poetry. We're discussing Shakespeare, we're discussing, poets of, from this part of the world. So I just thought, what, let me write about this environment, what it means to me, how I've become a part of it. And that was how that poem came about. So it's an area in my community that's associated with arts and music, culture. And because I am part of the Croft Poetry Club, which is in the Cray, I just feel like, I'm part of it, and I should talk about it.
Okay, that's fantastic. So what would you like to see for your books? What would you like to see happen to your books in the future?
My books, my message in through poetry. This is just the beginning. I mean, like I said, the making of the first book, was quite unintentional. But the second book, Friendship is Love, was a bit calculated, because that was like, this is my real experience of friendship. I've had some good friendships, and I believe that, this message is deep, this message is real, support mechanisms are deep, and that sisterhood, that brotherhood, wherever you find friendship, really, it transcends race, color. I mean, I could have any age to be my friend. I could be friendly with anyone, from like an aged person, whatever the color of your skin is, or like, you don't write poetry, your writing is totally different from mine, but we're here talking about, different forms of art. So I think friendship is one of the if they want to say what your ethos and everything, or what's that message you'd like to really, really carry across in your books, it's love, really. It's love. It's that positive space where you are trying to find balance, but you're drawing strength from your immediate environment, and that environment could be anybody around you. It could be anybody around you. It could be family. It could be people you meet in your journey through life. And so that's what my book, I want my books to always, definitely I always have a message to bring across. And I want it to be seen and heard and felt in my books, whatever the message I'm trying to bring across, which obviously for different times, it would be different depending on my experience or what I'm feeling. I wouldn't want to deviate from the simplicity of my poetry because I feel that's my style. I'm, it's not generally winded or like difficult to understand. It's pretty straightforward for anybody to read. So I think for me, my books carrying my simple message in its depth is definitely what I want my books, where I see my books, years from now.
So for people who want to buy your books, where can they find your books to buy?
On Amazon. Amazon.co.uk for now. We can never say never in terms of futuristic projects. Like you said, you never can tell. We might be, working on something together in the future. But at the moment, it's on Amazon and open to having that conversation on the table. Impacting children and people in general.
Okay. So I would like to say a very big thank you, Doubra. Thank you for making our time to join me from the UK to educate us on poetry. I think you are the first poet. Yes, I think you are the first. Yeah, you are the first poet I have actually chatted with on the podcast, which is amazing. And thank you so much for your wisdom nuggets. So for people who are interested in buying Doubra's book, kindly go to Amazon. There's Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk. Yeah, and buy her books. So thank you, Doubra, for once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Project.
It's a privilege and an honor. And thank you for
Thank you
for having me. Thank you for your support.
You're most welcome.